Minnesota
if you're
at
winning
Arizona.
at 1:00 this week, good luck.
Yeah, dude, all the good games are in the afternoons. We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by FanDuel. Week 2 stacks plus bets. Lineup builder. There's a lot of stuff that we have to get to today. DFS plays that we should be considering in our tournament lineup. So we'll get through that. We're going to go through some of the top games on the entire slate. This is one that I definitely look forward to, but you should be looking forward to the end of this video because we are going to be building a team on FanDuel Live. That team will be in the listener league at fanduel.com/Holka. So make sure you get in there before it fills. $5 rake free, big prizes, quite literally the best contests in all of DFS. Also going to be reviewing a bunch of those lineups from that tournament live every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Fired up to have this man back with us on the Joe Holka Show. Hribar, obviously you know him from sharpfootballanalysis.com, the worksheet, and on Twitter at Lord Reeves. Let's not waste any more time here. Game number 1 that we're going to talk about, Buffalo at Miami per FanDuel Sportsbook. The Bills are minus 3.5 point road favorites with an over-under sitting at about 47.5 points. This is a game that I think is going to maybe fly under the radar a little bit, but we've just been seeing so much steam on this Miami team overall. Will Fuller coming back. Tell us why you like this one.
Yeah, I like this game a lot. So I like a lot of games that early in the season. We talked a little bit about like the hot weather games last week, and anytime you can get a game in Miami early in the season, you're going to get these gas defenders. The Buffalo was there early in the season last year, and that game shot out. If you look at this, when these teams have met recently, they've all been shootouts. The past 5 matchups have all gone over the game total. They've averaged a combined total of 61.8 points per game in the past 5 times these teams have met. They've all had 52 or more points scored. So I like that. You're getting a little buy on a dip on the Bills too, who did not put out a good performance. And if you listen to the show last week, we highlighted how as good as Josh Allen was last year, the one kind of bugaboo he still had was that if you pressure him, he can kind of, fall apart a little bit. And the Steelers got home with 4. The Steelers blitzed at the lowest rate in the NFL last week, and they still pressured Josh Allen on 48% of his dropbacks. So, I mean, any type of quarterback, if you guys watched the Super Bowl last year, if you get home with 4, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It's a problem. Mm-hmm. But here is what is different about this matchup and pressuring Josh Allen. So Steelers got home without blitzing. This is not in Miami's DNA. They are a blitz-heavy team. They were second in the NFL in blitz rate last year under Brian Flores. In NFL in week 1, they blitzed at the second highest rate as well. They blitzed 21 times. That was the second highest raw total rate too. But if you blitz and you don't get home, you give up splash plays, and that's how Josh Allen has kind of really worked Brian Flores and these defenses over recently. If you look at Josh Allen's career history against Brian Flores, he has gone to work on this Miami Dolphins defense. Last year, the Dolphins blitzed Josh Allen on 28 dropbacks. They only created pressure on 8 of those dropbacks, and against the blitz, Josh Allen was 19 of 27, 70% completion rate, 302 yards, 11.2 yards per pass attempt with 4 touchdowns against that blitz that the Miami Dolphins brought. So if Miami's going to come and bring the heat like we know they do, because that's what they do every week, just like the Baltimore Ravens do, and if Baltimore Ravens are going to live a quick death to Patrick Mahomes doing that again. But look at Josh Allen's history. I mean, it's so good against this defense. I believe Daboll has kind of a thumbprint on them and what they want to do. I think it's a great buy the dip kind of run back for the Bills. And if you want to easily kind of stack Josh Allen, we know we've always got Diggs. We don't need to go on Diggs. Last week, Emmanuel Sanders had 8 targets. He played 93% of the passing plays for the Buffalo Bills. He had a 21-yard ADOT.
Wow.
Like we're gonna get where's the chance for some big hits here, for Emmanuel Sanders down the line. He's really cheap. If you want to stack him, he's an easy double stack option. Cole Beasley, this isn't really the site. The new sponsor isn't really the site for Cole Beasley. He's got to get in the end zone for us. But on the Miami side, you've got options all galore too if you want. I really like Jalen Waddle out of the 3 guys, but one, we haven't seen Will Fuller play. He didn't play in the preseason at all. With that foot injury. He really didn't practice a lot either. We don't know if he's got any kind of rapport with Tua, but I like him as a tactical leverage piece even on the field. Like Will Fuller just being on the field makes the other players better for the Miami Dolphins. And it particularly, I believe, makes Jalen Waddle better. Jalen Waddle ran 75% of his routes in his debut in the slot. That's kind of where we've always attacked the Bills. You know, they've got good boundary corners. He's going to avoid Trey White. I like also what the Dolphins did with Jalen Waddle in terms of not just the targeting of 6 times, but the types of targets. They were scheming open. They were moving him around. He was in motion. So I like that as well. He's really cheap to bring back in that game as well. The best thing about this game is we believe it could shoot out. I laid out those reasons, the history of it shooting out. We don't play any running backs here. We don't care about any of these running backs. That's the perfect kind of layout, what we like, and neither of these teams really have a tight end we care about. So it's kind of like set up for kind of a good spot, I think, to buy back in on Josh Allen, because we know that the Bills are going to chuck it around still. Like, they're not just going to turtle because they were bad in week 1. And, you know, we're getting a hot weather game, and I like the Dolphins bring back side as well.
You don't spend the type of draft capital that the Dolphins did on Jalen Waddle not to have him be just a massive part of this offense. So I'm kind of hoping that people will, like, I guess, see that Fuller is back, and maybe they gravitate towards him a little bit, and it brings down the ownership for Jalen Waddle, because I think Waddle's still the one that I want with Tua, or at least on bringbacks of my Josh Allen stack. So I'm with you on that, man. 4.37 in his 40 time, like, that is just something that I want access to. Obviously, Tua just doesn't get enough credit for how accurate he has been with the deep ball, and I didn't even know that about his slot snaps last week. Like, that's even better for this specific matchup. So I'm all over that. Love my boy John Brown, and he's someone that they compared Waddle to. I know John Brown, I guess, RAP as of now, but he's someone that I used to love playing in DFS just because of how he played. If Waddle is my new John Brown, I think that would be pretty cool. I do like Diggs, of course. He's someone that still was top 10 in weighted opportunity last week. Obviously, if there are going to be those splash plays, I think he's going to be involved. We'll see where the public is at. He's one of those like high-end wide receivers that kind of burned us last week. So this is a game that could go a little bit under the radar. So I like all those stacks that you mentioned. Best bet in this one, Reeves. What do you think?
I'm on the game total here. I think that this game is going over.
Love it. All right, so let's move on to game number 2. We have the Dallas Cowboys at the LA Chargers per FanDuel Sportsbook. The Cowboys are currently 3.5-point road underdogs. The over/under currently sits at 55.5. Some sharp action early on the Chargers. 83% of the money, only 43% of the betting tickets. So that's kind of interesting. The one thing that's scaring me, because a lot of people are talking about this game already this week, the under actually 80% of the money right now, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the sharp side. But man, there's a lot of the betting dollars on the under right now. So maybe people are getting a little bit too crazy with this one. But tell us why you like this game.
Well, I mean, this is the chalk game, right? Like,
Yeah.
we have to talk about it just because it is. It's going to be the game everyone's going to gravitate the most. And it's all Cowboys games, right? Like, this is where we are. I mean, over the 6 starts Dak Prescott has made since the start of last season, Dallas games have averaged 67.2 points per game combined, with 60 or more points scored in 5 of those games. Oddly enough, the one that didn't was when Dak played against Brandon Staley's defense week 1 last year. Now, different personnel, different scheme, but, you know, Brandon Staley is a guy, like, they play shell coverage. They do not give up big plays. They're not going to let you throw downfield on them no matter what he's got. So Dallas still has the personnel. Like, they're going to drop back a ton because they're road dogs here, and that's what Dallas is going to do. But the Rams invite you, not the Rams, Brandon Staley's defense. I keep saying because he came from the Rams, but
Right.
His defense, they come with light boxes. Like, they never load the box. So Dallas could have some of those games, run plays where they checked out of last week. We saw Kellen Moore say that he had 24 run plays dialed up for Zeke, that Dak checked out of 12 of them. And when Dallas did run last week, Zeke ran into the highest percent of carries and 8 men in the box or not.
I saw that
last week. So, like, the Bucks were loading the box. They were sending blitzes. This Chargers defense they're gonna give you light boxes. That's what Brandon Staley's defense is. So we might see some more runs here. Obviously, Zeke is a road dog, not really a spot we like. The biggest problem I had with Zeke in week 1 wasn't anything that you knew it was a game plan that they weren't going to really run on the Bucks, but he still led the NFL in routes run and just really wasn't involved in the passing game. We hope that that's not sticky. It's week 2. Like, there are a lot of things, the anomalies that, could have happened in like week 9 when we have an 8-week sample, but because they happen in week 1, we don't really know that they're outliers or not. With Michael Gallup being injured too, we can expect Zeke probably to get some more targets, especially if he's going to run that high rate of routes like he ran a week ago. So I mean, he's a little bit interesting. If you want to buy the dip, he's dropped in price, but typically not a spot I like to play running backs. And road dog guys probably. I don't know. It's a guy that I can't really get a grasp on. But, the Chargers side, I think when you look at what the Chargers did last week, you have to be really thrilled moving on from the Anthony Lynn era to the Joe Lombardi, Brandon Staley era. They had an amazing game plan to attack that good Washington defensive front. Justin Herbert had the 4th fastest release time in the NFL. They didn't really, kind of like I said, try to dial up those deep shots. They were just getting the ball out of his hands, really efficient throws. He really kind of struggled again on early downs. If you look at him on first down pass attempts, just 5.6 yards per pass attempt. But what he did last year, he rolled right over to week 1, where he just thrived on high leverage, third down situations. He was 14 of 17 passing on third down for 9.8 yards per pass attempt. He keeps getting over. We're getting him against the Dallas team that, we picked on all last year with quarterback play. Now they're not going to have DeMarcus Lawrence. They're not going to have Randy Gregory. It's just really hard to objectively find a path to how the Cowboys really slow down the passing game for the Chargers. Keenan Allen is going to be kind of probably the most popular players this week. 13 targets again. We now have a 12 full game sample of Keenan Allen playing with Justin Herbert. He has 12.2 targets in those games. He's had just one game where he hasn't had double-digit targets playing with Justin Herbert in a full game, and it was 7. So, we're buying the value. He's a guy, too, that, you need kind of a touchdown for him or more volume because of the types of targets he gets, but he's getting a lot of targets with Justin Herbert. He's the foxhole guy. I think the other ancillary pieces here are interesting, and I don't want to call them ancillary because they're really good players. Right. Mike Williams, we saw him have an actual role in the offense that kind of delivered on what they said they were going to do in the preseason, that he was going to be used more as an actual wide receiver and not just a tertiary lid lifter. He had a 10-yard ADOT in week 1. That's almost 6 full yards lower than his career average, which was 15.9. We saw him have the 12 targets. He had 2 end zone targets. I think it's really interesting when you look at this as a matchup stance, because where Dallas really got shredded, in terms of volume, was by Chris Godwin, a guy who has a little more overlap to a Keenan Allen in the slot. Where they kind of had a little bit of success in week 1, the very little success they had in week 1 was with Trayvon Diggs on Mike Evans, another big Mike. Mike Evans only had the 3 catches. So maybe Trayvon Diggs, he's not going to go in the slot and travel with, Keenan Allen. So we'll probably see him on Mike Williams again if he can roll over that success. We're not really scared of Trayvon Diggs. I'm just highlighting that it was a similar layout as last week, and the guy that has the overlap to Mike Evans, Mike Williams, didn't really do well, and the guy that has the overlap to the guy that did well, and Chris Godwin, is Keenan Allen. So it seems to all kind of line up for Keenan Allen to smash again. Austin Eckler came into last week with the hamstring injury. The snaps really weren't there because of that. He played 58% of snaps. That was right on par with Chase Edmonds. He ran a pass route on just 42.9% of the dropbacks. That was 25th among all running backs week 1. We know that's not going to be sticky. He already was a full practice. So I do think that he will get some targets. He gets targeted too. I think that also takes a little bit away from Mike Williams too, where some people might chase Mike Williams. Mike Williams got those 12 targets, but also was in a game where Eckler had 0 targets. So we might have a little bit of a, kind of regression to the mean for both guys this week. Jared Cook, actually kind of interesting if you want to find a unique stacking option with Justin Herbert. 5 of 8 targets he caught in week 1. He ran a pass route on 63% of the dropbacks. He was targeted on 29% of his routes. That was 3rd among all tight ends with 20 more routes run in week 1. So we've got a little bit of options to get creative here to run this with some stacking options. I didn't really touch the Cowboys receivers because they're good. FanDuel has CeeDee Lamb priced at the same price as Jarvis Landry.
It's absurd. It's the first thing we saw in the first look. We're like, this price is insane. He's 6,800. He's
going to be super chalky, but he's going to be good chalk, I believe. Yeah. I mean, for that kind of price. You also have Cedric Wilson as a unique stacking partner if you want to get involved as a super cheap punt. But we're still at the point of the season where salary, it's not really necessary to go there. But there's everyone's kind of on the board here, though, if you want to choose your angle.
That's what I'm saying. There's a lot here, right? I guess if you're watching this video later in the week, definitely check out the pivots video with TJ Hernandez. We're going to talk about some pivots in this game, some guys that could go a little bit under the radar. Reeves actually just mentioned a couple of them that we're going to talk about with TJ, so check out that video if you haven't already. The thing with Zeke, and you mentioned the amount of, 8+ boxes that he faced was the most in the league in week 1, but what I found at least interesting is that he was actually the number 2 player in time behind the line of scrimmage, which doesn't necessarily mean a lot for daily fantasy at times, but it doesn't necessarily say that he was playing bad by any means either. Like, he's still been pretty elusive behind that line, or at least the line was holding up for him. So I see that as a little bit of a bull signal for Zeke. I don't think we're ever going to see him get 11 attempts again. I think that was a little bit of an anomaly. So with this game in tournaments, with a lot of people that I would imagine are going to gravitate towards like just this passing game, the CD Lamb price point, Amari, all of these guys that we talked about, and obviously Keenan Allen on the other side is going to be popular. Like, I do have some interest in Zeke in this game specifically, but man, I kind of want to see what happens with the steam here on ownership as we go. Like, this could be one of those ones that we get to Sunday and it's just like the clear spot. It's already looking like that so far this week. So it's an interesting game overall. We mentioned a couple stacks, but best bet from this one, Reeves, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like the Charger side here a lot. And I have a lot of faith in what I saw from the offensive, game plan, just not having Anthony Lynn. I do think that they get enough stops. Remember Dallas? I mean, they could have won that game last week, but they also could have really easily lost that game by 14 plus points if you don't have a Chris Godwin fumble. Lenny has the ball go through his hands on the screen pass. They had some kind of fluky turnovers that kept that game closer than it could have been. So I do like the Chargers here.
Okay, the last guy, I think, let's talk quickly about Austin Eckler. We talked about it a little bit. What was, I guess, positive, like 0 targets in the passing game, which is scary, but he did get some run at the goal line, which is like, again, the bull signal that we've been looking for Austin Eckler's season. So maybe he is a guy from this game as well that as we kind of progress through here, he ends up looking like a decent price pivot, 7K. He's basically the same price as CD Lamb. So do you kind of see it that way? Do you think that maybe the hamstring was the reason he wasn't as involved in the passing game? Or are we all freaking out for no reason? What do you think about Eckler specifically?
I mean, his snaps were definitely related to the hamstring. There's just
Okay.
no way. The snaps and routes, there's just no way to cut it. Like, he's not going to be a guy that runs a pass route on 40% of team dropbacks over the course of the season. It's just, that would be just completely going the opposite direction of what I said. That would be unrational coaching. That'd be them not using their players correctly. But the fact that he logged the full practice, I think, is a really good sign. And he came out of that game unscathed, too, last week. We didn't re-injure it. I think he's great leverage for a lot, because I think that we're going to see Herbert be the highest owned quarterback. I think when we get to Sunday, he'll be the highest owned quarterback. Maybe him or Kyler, but I think Herbert will, especially his price on FanDuel, like where he is, he saves you a good amount. I think we'll see him be the highest owned guy. So he's leverage on a lot of things. He can be a unique stacking partner for Herbert because if he runs more routes and we know he can catch the football if they choose to use him in that capacity. He's also leverage on the passing game if he does get those goal line carries again on a home favorite that is, projected to score over 30 points, which we always like. So yeah, he's really, really great. And some people may look at those catches and be like, that's not, I don't want to play him because of that. Or maybe just look at the points he scored or missed the kind of the goal line equity that he had in week 1 and maybe not want to go that route, or we just want to play the passing assets in this game. So he's really good leverage on all those angles.
All right, I'm going to move us forward here because there's a lot of good games to talk about. Normally we just pick 3. We might touch quickly on a couple others. So game number 3, Tennessee at Seattle per FanDuel Sportsbook. The Titans are 5.5-point road underdogs. Some early action in the week has some of the sharps on the under in this one. Again, kind of scary. 89% of the money, only 36% of the betting tickets. It is early in the week, so we could see that kind of transition a little bit. But this is one, I guess we don't know exactly what Tennessee is yet, but it was kind of scary last week against the Cardinals, right?
Yeah, it was absolutely. They were one of the biggest disappointments, I think, of week 1 when you're talking about expectations. Obviously the Packers were the worst. Then you probably got the Falcons and the Titans, kind of the next teams up. It was just a real problematic from go, like literally from snap, that they just were going to have problems in pass protection. They actually tried to run play action early in that game, and then they had to come out of it because they were just getting wrecked. Ryan Tannehill was getting wrecked. They had 2 play action dropbacks in the first 2 drives, and he got hit on both of them. And then as a byproduct, they ran play action at a league low 11.6% of the time. His marks the previous 2 years under Arthur Smith were 36% and 29.9%. Those were 1st and 9th in the league. Why it's a big deal is because Ryan Tannehill, under play action the past years, has averaged 11 yards per pass attempt. Without the use of play action, it's been 7.3, just kind of a guy. Where he's been number 1 in the NFL over the past 2 years is EPA passing on throws 11 to 19 yards downfield. That zone where when you use play action, the linebackers get sucked up, you throw over the linebackers. He's been excellent there. You can't do that when you don't use play action. So they were just kind of shut down from go. Chandler Jones actually had just a field day, and we don't really have a good pulse on what this Tennessee kind of offense is, under Todd Downing, because it was terrible in week 1. So you have a chance to buy the dip. against the Seattle defense that I believe faced the Colts defense that kind of played into the hands of how Seattle wants to play defense. We want to play teams that can attack the Seattle defense with wide receiver play. And the Colts just really don't have those kind of assets. And it really kind of played right into the strengths of the Seattle defense. We would hope Julio Jones and Arthur Juan are guys that the Tennessee Titans can attack, the Seattle defense with. And those guys are affordable. You can really get by the dip. Derrick Henry, I think, is in a very similar spot as last week, though. If the Titans are going to be a team that fall behind, I mean, he's always going to be the guy that struggles, right?
And he's still 8K. Like, you didn't get any discount off of that week either, which is rough.
Nope. Yep. And also, you have a similar matchup. So we talked about it last week on the show that we thought, like, Arizona, their defensive front was really going to be good. Like, we talked about how good, like, all their talent is front loaded. Well, Seattle also is a team that's very good against the run. So last year in 2020, they were 10th in yards per carry allowed to running backs, and they were 10th in rushing points allowed per game. Remember, we don't really care about the receiving production they give up here because Derrick Henry doesn't give us any receiving production. In week 1, they limited Jonathan Taylor to just 3.3 yards per carry. All the Colts guys got all their production through the passing game. We don't have that out here. We don't have that as a road dog out with Derrick Henry. Can he break off a long run? Yes. We don't have to kind of reiterate that every week, but it's a very similar layout for Derrick Henry, and I think it's problematic. I'm probably going to be someone that doesn't really go back. I'm not going to really chase, if he burns me, so be it. But those are really it. You have to worry about Tennessee. No one else really gets looks. No one gets opportunities. So if you're going to buy the dip, you're going to go back in on Tannehill, Arthur Juan, and Julio if you're going to go in this game, because those guys are still affordable. 71 on A.J. Brown, 6,300 for Julio Jones. You can definitely fit those guys in game stacks if you want. Now on the Seattle side, what a success week 1 the Shane Waldron offense was. I saw Kevin Clark comp it to like the Houston Rockets offense, where it was either a dunk or a three-pointer. So Russell Wilson, a lot of people, you might look at the box score and say, oh, Russell Wilson had 23 pass attempts and averaged 11 yards per pass attempt. It's a typical Russell Wilson. This is what they've always done. Low volume, he gets over. But if you look actually underneath the hood, Russell Wilson threw 14 passes from 9 yards or behind the line of scrimmage, and he actually led the NFL in rate of throws that were over 20 yards downfield. So with more passing volume, obviously it's the same thing story you always hear. But the actual way that those targets were dished out were completely different. We already saw it into effect. This offense is going to have. They're going to get the ball out fast. They're going to get the ball into space, and then they're going to take their downfield shots. So if Tennessee can just counter punch here, you're going to get that value. I actually like, because a lot of people are going to look at this, because the Titans were what we thought they were week 1. They've allowed 38 or more points now in each of their past 3 regular season games. There have been 51 or more combined points in each of their past 5 regular season games. Their defense is trash. It was trash in week 1. People are going to want to play DK Metcalf. They're going to want to play Tyler Lockett. Those guys are going to be heavily owned. No problem with it. We know that the Tennessee offense is bad. I actually believe that this is an objectively good spot, not just for leverage, but an objectively good spot for Chris Carson.
Okay.
He was as reliable as ever, kind of for like what you get from Floor Plus. He had 117 yards on his 19 touches. They lose Rashad Penny. He also ran a pass route on 64% of the Seattle dropbacks, which was 10th, the 10th highest rate among all running backs. Remember last year, he averaged a career high receptions per game, and they're going to get the ball fast in this offense. He's going to be involved in the passing game here too. So I think you're getting a little bit of what we like as leverage against his passing game to be highly owned. He's a bell cow running back that plays on passing downs. He's a home favorite. Its team has a 30-point team total. I think he's a really good play in this game as well, especially if you want to just find a unique way to not just glom onto all the pass catchers here.
Yeah, dude, Carson's 6,700. I love that call. He's very cheap for someone with the role that he has, and there's a lot of expensive guys in this game. We mentioned all of the wide receivers, A.J. Brown, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. They're all over 7K, so if we're trying to look into leverage and not have it be Derrick Henry, I kind of like the Carson call. That's super interesting, one that I hadn't considered yet. What is nice, I guess, as a bull signal for someone like Tyler Lockett, 3rd in weighted opportunity last week. I think a lot of people might be, I guess, thankful that Metcalf ended up getting in the end zone and kind of bailed people out that had him. I was one of those people that had Metcalf last week, so I got bailed out as well. Tyler Lockett, it seems like a pretty expensive price tag for him, but anytime you see a guy, like I mentioned this with Harmon, it's like in weighted opportunity after week 1, it's Tyreek Hill all the way up here, and then it's Cooper Kupp, Tyler Lockett, Calvin Ridley directly below him. So I definitely would be willing to get back on board with that. But I'll say this, Reeves, like to kind of tie a bow on the Derrick Henry stuff, these are the games where he goes nuts. The games where it looks like it's a bad spot, that no one has them. We tried to do it last week, ended up getting, I think, around 10% in some of the smaller field stuff. Just got absolutely burned by it. My best team had Derrick Henry, so I get it. Trust me. And if it's a similar spot, I get it. But these are the games where he just like shoves it down our throat when everyone else is super chalky and he's like 7-8%. You know what I mean? So just remember, I said that. I'm saying it for the clip, Reeves. I'm gonna act like it was my idea. But it was one of those things that I will have some. I will have some Derrick Henry. Yeah, some receipts for sure.
Dude,
So
gotta have receipts.
have to. I should start saying outrageous stuff and just act like it was like the one thing I said all week that mattered. Maybe I'll start
Twitter,
doing that.
man. That's how you Twitter.
Is that like the screenshot version of like doing a show? Just like say a lot of outrageous things and only post the things that come true. Like that sounds like a good strategy.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. You have to start a tweet with either "I was told" or "Imagine." Always.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There you go. There you go. Yeah. There was one of the things that we used to talk about with Kipper on the hockey show last year. It's not. I'm not saying it's true. It's just what I heard. Right. So that's one of the things that we should hammer down here. Toss a like on this video, subscribe if you have not already. We got Rich Hribar with us to talk through some stacks, best bets, best bet from this game, Reeves, before we move on.
This one, I like the Seattle side. I don't really know what to believe about the Titans. I'm still got my fingers crossed. I'm optimistic because they have talented players. I think talent will win out no matter what the scheme is. But I do like the Seattle side here.
Okay, so before we build a lineup, Reeves, let's talk through a couple bonus games. There's a couple that we definitely still have to touch on here. Minnesota at Arizona.
At 1 o'clock this week. Good luck.
Yeah, dude, all the good games are in the afternoon. Someone else mentioned that in the Discord, so that's crazy. Minnesota, Arizona, Atlanta, Tampa Bay. The Sharps are hammering the over in both of these games, Reeves. Tell us why.
Well, I mean, they probably watched the Falcons and the Falcons defense. We talked last week when we were talking about the Eagles and Devontae Smith. I mean, Dean Pease is going to blitz. That's what Dean Pease does. He's going to send heat. And when you send heat with this Atlanta secondary, I mean, you're going to leave these guys exposed. They blitzed 36% of the time in week 1. It was the 8th highest rate, but they got pressure at just 20% of the time, which was 21st. So, I mean, Tom Brady is going to eat this up. I mean, Tom Brady is going to just shred these guys. Remember, Brady still has to get this yardage pace on track so he can break the record in Foxborough, which I still believe is going to happen. And they play the Rams next week, so he's got to stack some yards here.
This is going to be the one where he goes absolutely crazy to get there.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't play this game, so I won't go super hard, but I mean, it's a great bounce back spot for Mike Evans. He's cheap. He was out there at 96% of the team, dropbacks. He's going to be out there. He's going to have one-on-one matchups against this really soft secondary. Love him as a kind of a bounce back guy, easy rebound guy. I am willing to kind of still entertain both of the Atlanta Falcons guys. Just because like the Falcons can't be this bad. There's too much talent here for them to be this bad. Now their offensive line is a huge problem. It's going to be a problem here. They gave up pressure 17 of 39 dropbacks for Matt Ryan, and the Eagles only blitzed 3 total plays. Oh, that ain't no good.
Yes.
Not against the Bucs, man.
Yeah.
Not against the Bucs. It's going to be a problem. But both guys, Kyle Pitts and Calvin Ridley, still had the target shares and the involvement we look for. Hopefully people are just thinking it's just, they were so bad, there's no way they're going to be this bad again. But I mean, even Kyle Pitts for his pricing, especially at tight end where we don't have Kelsey on the main slate. We don't even have Hawkinson on the main slate. It's pay up for Waller or Kittle. I think you still have to entertain Kyle Pitts. I mean, he was targeted on 23% of his routes. It was 6th highest rate among tight ends. He was on the field for 80% of the team's passing plays. He had the 8 total targets. It's still kind of usage we look for in tight end play. There's going to be a lot of dropbacks again. They're going to be losing this game on the road. They were huge dogs. And then, Calvin Ridley's had a lot of success against them. We saw the Cowboys receivers have success against the Bucs too. They have a good defense, but they don't have a lot of individual talent that we outright avoid. Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean are very good players. I'm not trying to shade them at all, but they're not the type of players where you're just like, all right, we have to just totally junk this guy because he's facing this cornerback. The Bucs put those guys in man coverage. Calvin Ridley is going to have a chance to win. And, you look against the Buccaneers the last 2 seasons, he's had games of 6 for 85 and a touchdown, 10 for 163 and a touchdown, 8 for 52. There's still going to be opportunities here, and I don't think anyone's really going to want to touch those Falcons pass catchers. I think Ridley or Pitts will still be entertained because of the price and the position, but I really don't think Ridley's going to be a guy that people go to this week.
Well, think about it, Reeves. Like last week, like if you were paying up at wide receiver and you chose wrong, you had a Stephon Diggs or you had a Calvin Ridley or you had a Devontae Adams, like people are going to think twice before going back to that again this week. And then Stephon Diggs in an amazing spot. We have Ridley and then the flop lag just for this Atlanta team as a whole to be a lot better. So I like the idea of going back to Ridley, especially in this game where I think if you need a clear bring back on a stack with the Tampa Bay side, it makes a ton of sense. I'm with you on Pitts. I think that he'll still grab a little bit of steam. There's still enough, I guess, lingering in the background from the offseason about this guy being just a complete freak. Like you said, no Kelsey on the slate. So we'll have to keep an eye on ownership in that one. Before we make a lineup, Reeves, this Arizona game, I guess, what do we do after the Adam Thielen, just 2 touchdowns, like we said, regression coming, not last week. We got Dalvin Cook there. We got a lot of heavy hitters in this Arizona-Minnesota game, but not a lot of people talking about it, at least yet.
Yeah, I mean, I had a tough time picking all the games, so I'm glad we snuck these two in. I mean, listen, Kyler picked up right where he kind of left off healthy last year. And it was against the Titans, I know, but when we saw Kyler healthy last year, he was a guy that was regularly ripping 30-point fantasy game for us. And, comes off, hits that. He gives you the mobility. We got the rushing touchdown for him. And we know they're going to throw and play empty, which is what we love about the Cardinals. Even though we don't always love all the decisions Cliff makes, we know that there's a lot of assets there. So you know what you're going to do on the Cardinal side. We don't really have to entertain really the running backs, especially on FanDuel, because Edmonds is the guy that has the snap edge, and Connor has to fall in the end zone and doesn't have enough requisite touches to be a guy that we want to play. But the Minnesota side I think is interesting because you look at what they did week 1. Their defense was better up front. We thought their front 7 was going to be really good. And it was. They sacked Joe Burrow the highest rate per dropback, but this secondary is still a major problem for them. And if they're going to not be able to stop teams through the air, especially a team like the Cardinals who are going to throw the football, we're going to get them playing in these game scripts like they did last week again. So Kirk Cousins has now thrown multiple touchdown passes in 9 of his past 10 games going back last year. But over that span, Kirk Cousins has thrown 35 or more passes in 8 of those 10 games. They're getting volume. And when you get volume on a skinny target tree, and we did add KJ Osborne to the fold last week, but when you get that kind of volume on a skinny target tree with talented players like Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson, it's going to be hard for regression to find those guys because they're going to get a lot of targets because their teams are chasing game script. We know what to do with Dalvin Cook. He still had the touches there. You get the touchdown to kind of bail him out last week. But what you like about Dalvin Cook, though, is if this is going to be sticky, we like that receiving usage Dalvin Cook had last week because he hasn't really had that for his career. He's been a guy that's contributed in the passing game, but he's never been over 4 receptions per game for his career for a season. Maybe we get that this year, and we like to see that. When you don't have a hyper efficient game, you get those 7 targets, you get those 6 receptions. But this is another game too where it's just very clear the types of plays you want. I think if you're gonna want to chase Christian Kirk, that's probably going to be maybe a little bit of fool's gold. He was 79th among all wide receivers in week 1. In terms of routes run per dropback, it was right on par with Gabriel Davis, which I think is a good corollary, right? Like if you ever want to play Gabriel Davis, that's what you're getting with Christian Kirk. You need those big plays. You need him to have those 2 touchdown games. We would like to see the usage for Rondale Moore go up, and Christian Kirk maybe can earn more time if they kind of give up the ghost on AJ Green, because the one thing that did look true from week 1 from last year was AJ Green still looked like he just did not really have much, man.
Yeah, I'm with you. We talked about that a little bit with Harmon. So if anyone's watching this video, definitely check out the 3 leverage key wide receiver. I don't even know what to call that segment yet. We talked about some wide receivers with Harmon, and Rondale Moore was one of them, a guy that basically just got 5 targets on 20 snaps. So when he's out there, he's been used. So I think that's definitely something that we can kind of hold our hat on going forward. Christian Kirk was pretty popular on the waiver wire this week. But without further ado, Reeves, you ready to build a FanDuel lineup, my man?
I am.
Let's do it. So this team will be in the listener league at fanduel.com/Holka. So make sure you get in there before it fills. We're already at 713 out of 2,000, ahead of last week's pace. So definitely get in here immediately. $5 rake free, big prizes, 3 entry max. Reeves is going to continue his dominance of the guests on this. We will see Rich Hribar, Jake Seeley, and TJ Hernandez. Their lineups that they're building on this show every Thursday will be in the listener league. So make sure you guys check that out. fanduel.com/Holka. All right, Reeves. Like I said, this is a season-long contest, but it's basically the amount of dollars that you win is basically by the end of the season. That's what matters, right? So if you bank this thing once, like you're in really good shape to win the entire thing, right? So I think you can get a little bit weirder than I guess people realize, but it is the stacks video, so let's make sure we got a decent stack in here.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna play some guys we talked about. So we'll start with the chalk and we'll work our way down.
Okay.
I will just lock in both Keenan Allen and CeeDee Lamb.
All right.
I've got a lot to work with when I do that. I mean, I think it's gonna be hard to not play CeeDee Lamb.
And you
I mean,
have to scroll so far to get down to CeeDee Lamb that it's just completely
he's
absurd.
the same price as Jarvis Landry. Like,
dude, let's talk for around CD right now. Like CeeDee Lamb, DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Debo Samuel. Like, I don't know, man. I
Mike
can't
Evans
even talk about
maybe
it.
is a pivot.
We shouldn't even talk anymore about CeeDee Lamb because it's going to be what everyone talks about all week. But I'm with you, 6,800. He's basically a lock. All right.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put in those two guys. Now, I think a lot of people are gonna play Herbert, so I'm not gonna play Herbert.
Okay.
I do think people will. I think Herbert will be the most popular quarterback. It'll be him and Kyler.
Interesting. Okay.
So let's go Josh Allen. Let's go back to the game we opened with. Well, give me Josh Allen on the buyback because his price is still high, and I think people are going to overlook him this week. Maybe they won't because people like me are talking about him. So we'll say when people listen to the Joe Holka Show, they're going to play the guys we talk about. So maybe
but they're not going to spell your name right because they're going to see in the title. They're going to be like, "Who is this Rich Hribar? I've never heard of this guy. I know Lord Reeves, but I will correct that, man. I still feel so
give
bad.
me Josh Allen, and I want to stack him with Diggs. I want to bring Diggs back with him. So I've got a nice receiving core. I like this. I got Diggs. I've got
still got a lot of salary to work with, actually.
And I think Diggs' salary too is nice too.
Yeah.
So we got some creative things. What are we gonna do here?
Do you want to bring back on the Miami side? I'll ask that.
I don't because I would want to be a receiver, and I'm not gonna tie up that flex with one of those guys.
All right, skinny stack. It's 2,000 person field. It's not like it's a small tournament, so I don't mind the skinny stack for this one.
So I'm gonna go just the skinny stack, and I'll add one chalky play just because the salary is ludicrous, and I'll just roll back Najee Harris.
All right, Najee. Do you think people are gonna go back to that one just because of the price? Yeah.
And you got, I mean, just the layup too. Like you've got the Raiders on a short week coming off like a super emotional high win, and they were in overtime on a short week. They're going East Coast. It's all kind of set up. I mean, listen, I'm just gonna play him at 6,100. It is
just
what it
gonna
is.
play. Got it. All right.
I mean, it is what it is. All right, now let's do.
Do we want to lock in a defense to get a better idea of where you're at? Kind of like I know there's a couple of different plays, even like on the cheaper side that kind of stand out. But we could just put a placeholder in there as well if you want.
I mean, I'm probably gonna punt defense. I did it last week. We kind of. I mean, how do you approach? Are you someone that just fills defense in, or you'd like to just leave it?
More or less, like what I'm building, I usually either start with the number one leverage play or I start with a stack. But like as I get to like the middle of this build, normally I put in a placeholder on the cheaper end, and if I can pay up for something a little more contrarian, I have the salary to do it, fine. But I want to like have an idea of where I'm at. So I normally lock in something on the cheaper side just to see if it fits, basically.
Well, throw me something in maybe around like the $3,500 range, and we'll kind of see what we've got around there.
Let's go. We'll just toss in. God, I don't know. That range isn't that great right now. We'll toss in. I'll just throw in a placeholder of the Jets, I guess, because it's the only one that doesn't have like a negative correlation with what you've built so far. But we'll keep going.
All right, so
6,900 the rest of the way. You got tons of salary.
6,900 the rest of the way. I'm gonna go with Nick Chubb.
Nice. He was my late swap last week that like brought me back from the dead.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Nick Chubb because I don't think I'm gonna have enough to get to Dalvin. But you've got huge home favorite Cleveland against the Houston defense that obviously isn't as good as it was in creating turnovers. They won't be that way against the Browns. Also, when you look at like Nick Chubb in games that they're favored, just a shade under 19 FanDuel points per game, where they're favored by 6 points or more. And since he came back last season, he's averaging 16.5 FanDuel points per game. So I kind of like that, a little upside. He does run hot in the touchdown department. I could lefty. It's a tournament play. I mean, so
the Browns defense is really cheap too. Like for playing Houston, they're like the like 11th or 12th price defense on FanDuel. So that's an out if we have a little salary left over, I guess.
All right, so we'll roll with Nick Chubb. I think it's just a little different. I don't think a lot of the other guys are going to pick Nick Chubb either, and I don't think a lot of the listeners will pick him. Maybe they will.
It's all about being TJ and Jake, man. Screw everyone else.
Yeah. Well, I also want to just do something different in this one. So let's bring back Kyle Pitts then.
Okay.
Sigh. So we'll back Najee, Kyle Pitts, run back, the rookie run back. We'll see what we get.
Flop lag. This is the flop lag team mostly. I guess you got some guys in here that did well.
Yeah, there is a lot of flop lag here, I guess.
Yeah, 6,800 left if you stay with the Jets. So that gets you to like the Jarvis Landry, the Chris Carson, DJ Moore, those type of guys. So interesting range too. You could toss in Carson. Not a lot of correlation, but that doesn't really leave you much flexibility to move up in defense if you wanted to.
Yeah, let's see. I would like to get to Eckler.
Hmm.
Eckler or because we played Allen, so I don't know if I want to necessarily get the Eckler. I could get the DK with an extra 300 too.
You could.
Um,
I'm trying to think if there was a.
who's at? So what kind of defense if I go down? What are we looking at?
Okay, so at the very bottom of defense, we have Atlanta Falcons 3K, Houston's
We can't do
3,100, Tennessee is 3,200, Jacksonville is 3,300, Vikings 3,300. So like I said, man, it's kind of it's gross down there. We can throw Vikings. That gives you only 100 more salary though.
Oh yeah, so that only gives me. Well, I don't want to play the Jets against Mac either though. Mac only took 1 sack.
Okay.
And he's not going to throw any picks against that secondary. I think the Vikings are probably the best of those options just because they'll at least register a sack or two for me.
Sure. We could move. Oh man, this is tough. I'm trying to think of ways that you could even just grab a couple hundred. You could move off of Chubb or to Eckler if you really wanted to jam him in, but I don't know, man. 6,900 is kind of a weird range if you want to try and get up to DK.
Yeah, I think just the move is telling us to play Carson.
Okay, I'm in.
And we'll see. I mean, maybe I still don't know. Chris Carson's like a guy that like he never ends up as chalk. I saw some people mention that he will be chalky, but like he never ends up as chalk.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be chalk at least this point of the week.
And no one ever's excited to play Chris Carson.
Yeah, I mean that makes some sense for sure if you think about it that way.